Picking up where we left off on this CB750 Chopper Revival, I'm going to be taking off the oil pump in this one, but first I'm going to clean the surrounding area, and then we'll go ahead and measure the clearances, and I'll show you guys how to do a full rebuild, so enjoy the video. So basically what I'm doing here is focusing on the oil pan because I'm planning to remove it. And I want to try to get some of the grime and stuff away from the actual seam where we have to replace the gasket, because I don't want to have stuff fall in as I go to put the pan back up. I know it's like impossible without taking the engine out to just like fully clean this area up. But we can at least do a little bit and get a long way. And we'll clean the oil pan actually in my solvent tank, so we'll have it looking brand new. All this is just residual oil. You know, you drain the oil, accumulates right here, and then it gets wet and dust accumulates and just grows. So this is just normal stuff. But this is just a plastic razor blade. These are handy to have around. Don't damage anything. You can kind of get started scraping stuff off. Just a good tool. So this thing's been draining, and we're probably at about 3 quarts now. And normally you wouldn't get a full 3 quarts out of the oil pan because these are a dry sump bike. So what has happened is all of the oil that was in the oil tank above has leaked down through the pump and eventually just settled in the pan. So if I went to try to start the bike with this much oil in it, you could potentially hydrolock it and maybe even bend a rod or something like that. Yeah, another term for when this happens is wet sumping the bike for obvious reasons. But we're not going to get everything out of it, that's fine, just as we're going to take the pan off right now.
Fuck me enough.
Now, pulling the oil pan is arguably not necessary, but this is something that I like to do because I want to get a better idea of what the engine is doing. And this gives me a chance to inspect the oil pump. We're going to disassemble it, measure the clearances to be sure that we have at least a good shot at making good oil pressure. And then also within the oil pump, or the oil pump 2 lowercase, there's a couple O-rings. And if those O-rings are hard and brittle, that's a way that oil pressure can bleed out. So this is all in the name of oil pressure. So another reason is we might be able to see if it's got some bad cam guides in it or something. We'll look for plastic in the oil pan, and you know, it's just something I like to do. It's very minimal cost, and it really doesn't take that much time. That should be our front one, and then our rear one. So while they're still in there, I can go ahead and work on popping this thing off. It's typically a little spot, an ear right here that you can kind of pry from. Wow, just use our finger on that one. It's awesome. This bike's awesome. Normally you gotta fight those for a little bit. That or I've been eating my Wheaties. Okay. Right off the bat, hopefully you guys can see this, but there is very minimal stuff on the oil pump pickup screen. Very, very minimal. So to me, what that means is since this wasn't blocked or filled up, we had consistent oil pressure, because I've pulled these apart before on different bikes where this was completely filled with silicone. And what that would have meant is it was harder to pull oil into the engine, meaning it could have been ran on low oil pressure. So, ooh. Okay, all right. I don't know if I have enough room in my pan right now. Anyway, that's off. We're gonna pull the pump off and start cleaning. Fantastic. There's no actual like material. It's just a little sludge. Look at that. Cleans right up. This engine is very healthy. This is always like the worst part. We'll bend that ring back out and reuse this. But there's two screws right here that you need to remove to kind of separate the pump. And it's a lot easier to pry this off while it's still on the bike. Uh-oh. Don't flow over there. Don't do that. Oh boy. Oh God, we got so much oil. So much oil. All up in my carpet. Oh no. Oh, shit. So much more came out. Damn, so much oil. Okay, well, my rug is never gonna rust. It just got down in there. Damn it. You notice this nice clean pig mat that the camera was sitting on. Pump's off. All right, taking a look at the pump here. Our drive gear spins freely. I could tell it was trying to move oil. The O-rings that sat in these three areas are a little squared off. So that's, of course, one of the big reasons I wanted to pull the pump and inspect. So for now, we're going to pull our relief valve cap here, or our bypass, I should say. Pull this cap, these three screws, and then these four screws right here. So there's a little gasket that goes in between these two halves, and then these are just O-ring fit. So we'll go ahead and start pulling this thing apart. And then for this, I'm going to be using a number 3 JAS impact driver, just to crack these things loose, be a little easier on my hands. Really not much scoring on the inside of that. Rotor is very clean. Continually impressed by this bike. Yeah, again, no markings here. Then you have another alignment pin down here. And that corresponds to a slot in your rotor, or gear, whatever you want to call it. Thinnest little gasket. This is under some spring pressure. As soon as I went to adjust for the camera. Filming is difficult, guys. All right, now we can take our components to the solvent tank. It took like 45 seconds. Okay, we're ready to start assembling the oil pump, and we have 4 new O-rings right here. So they are going to replace the O-rings that sat here, 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 and then the one that's in the cap for the bypass valve here. And they're all the same. Beyond that, we have a little paper gasket right here that goes in between the halves. Now, we will start assembling it. I want to first measure the clearance between the actual rotor pieces here. Let's get that to focus. There we go. So right at the top there where they meet, we're going to measure the clearance there, as well as this one. That should be good to go. This is actually one of the cleanest oil pumps I have disassembled. Everything looks very good in it. It's just on par with the rest of the engine, so I'm very excited. So let me get my feeler gauges out. We will do a preliminary check, and then we will start assembling. We're going to use oil and Vaseline for this. All right, we have our rotor halves here, our rotor pieces. And I'm going to line this up where it is directly in the middle of the rotor. And basically what I'm looking for is 0.35 millimeters being our max. Now I am confident we're not even in the same universe as that. So it's very tight. 0.1. Nope. 0.06. Ah, we can actually get that one in there. Now to do this, what I'm doing is I'm feeding a feeler gauge right here. Now normally this would kind of be mounted on the oil pump itself, but this is just a good demonstration here. So this is actually 0.8 millimeters and 0.35 is our max. So this is well within spec. Same thing right here. 0.8 will go, but just barely. Yeah. So we are well within spec on our pump. Okay. First thing that we will do is assemble our halves. Get started. I will get this gasket out. Now for assembling this thing, I want to make sure that we get oil pressure quickly. So to do that, I'm going to try to help the pump prime a little bit. Now this is a dry sump bike, so all the oil that goes into the tank doesn't necessarily come straight into the pump on free flow. And because of that, I want to make sure that we have the pump pre-lubricated, and not just pre-lubricated, but I want to have it with like a thicker lubricant to help prime and prevent cavitation. So you can use oil, but again, I want something a little thicker. So I'm going to use a little Vaseline. I'm not going to go caking this stuff in here, but having a little bit will go a long way. So while you guys are arguing in the comments, I'm going to be working on this. No matter what way you go, there's going to be conflicting info, so just keep that in mind. I would rather have this and not need it, so I have done this numerous times on various engines. And then as I disassemble this, I actually put a little tiny dot. I actually put a little tiny dot on the back of this thing to correspond with another dot I put here. So they only go together the right way. This ratchet is freaking covered in oil from pulling the pan off. Now the first side that gets assembled is going to be our thick rotor here, along with the gear drive. So some areas we're going to use Vaseline, other areas we're going to use oil. So this brings me to my second topic here. I've actually got a lot of questions on these tools right here. Now this is just a generic oil squirter you can get at any auto parts store, and it just applies under a trigger, just applies a little bit of oil. It's very precise and very controlled. You have to have one of these. It's a very nice tool, very inexpensive. Now because I'm a nerd and I love watching Alan Milliard videos, I decided to pick up one of these because he was using it to like oil points and stuff like that. Now I'll never be as cool as him, but at least I got the little bottle. So this is just a generic needle applicator. These are for paint, for anything you can put in them, and you can get them at like Hobby Lobby or Amazon or something like that. Another great tool to have. I use these all the time. So for this, so we don't have to make a gigantic mess, just apply our oil. Lather it on there. Put our halves together. Now there are dots on here. You can see on the two pieces. So you want to make sure the dots are on the same side, and those are going to be facing outward basically, like that. Put our dowel pin in. Now this will be a little precarious fitting in here. So you have to rotate. First you gotta make sure you have it clocked right. And you gotta just kind of rotate it, spin it. It should glide right in. Okay. Spin that, feels really good. And from here, I'm actually going to put our dowel pin in. It's a little hard to see. Spin that, feels good. Okay, that feels good. All the O-rings are like squared off, so that's potential to not make as much of a seal as it could. Okay, now I can kind of straighten out that bend we put in here where I was prying it out. We'll get this thing back in. Okay. That looks good. So notice it's sticking out just a little bit more on that side. So it's going to be extra tight, popping it in. One rebuilt pump. Whenever we go to put this on the bike, we'll replace the 3 O-rings there, and there. We'll be good to go. All right, I've got all my O-rings on here. Feed the pump into place. Now it's probably obvious, but while you have the pump off, that's the time you want to take to clean your gasket surface. I'm going to try something a little different and reuse the gasket that came on it, which I think is original. It's in perfect condition. That means I can save the gasket I bought for another CB750 that I got to revive in the back, which you guys will see soon. There we go. All right, we are done. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I kept it really on topic with just the oil pump. The next one, I'm going to have a shorter episode on doing the intake manifolds. I actually boiled them in water and softened them up, so I felt like that could be a cool standalone video as well. Look for that one. And then after that, we're also going to be dropping a video on doing the electrical on this thing, where we had some surprises. So overall, I know progress is a little bit slow on this bike. There's just been a lot of stuff going on with the holidays. Right now is the day after Christmas, so hopefully you guys had a good one. But anyway, look for more videos going forward. Hopefully you guys like this one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.